The app cost nothing. No price, no trial, no card. In the first tenth of a second after that screen appeared, an auction was held. You were the lot. Several hundred companies were invited to bid, most of them with names you have never heard, and one of them won. That auction runs again on the next screen, and the one after that. It ran a few billion times today. None of this is secret. The rules are a public document, published by an industry body, and anyone can read them. What is hidden is simply that it happens at all, and that the price of a free app is set in a market you are never shown. Here is that market, from the inside. Start with what is actually being sold, because it is not what most people assume. It is usually not your name. Names are legally awkward and commercially unnecessary. What gets sent is a bid request, a small packet of structured data, defined by a public specification called OpenRTB, maintained by the IAB Tech Lab. A bid request carries the advertising identifier your phone assigns you, your IP address, your location, your device model, your operating system, your connection type, and the bundle identifier of the app you are sitting in right now. That last field does more work than the rest combined. The app you have open is itself a fact about you: a prayer app, a period tracker, a gambling app, a debt calculator, an immigration advice app. Nobody needs your name to know something intimate about you. They need to know which app just requested an advert. And attached to that packet, very often, is a list of segments, categories that some other company assigned you at some earlier point, traveling with you into this auction. You are not being asked, you are being described. Now the part that surprises developers as much as users. Most of the code that does this was not written by the person who made the app. An independent developer needs three things they cannot build alone: a way to show adverts, a way to know which advert made you install, and a way to find out why the app crashed. So they add software development kits, SDKs, from companies that specialize in each. A few lines in a configuration file, and the library is inside the product. An SDK is not a service the app calls. It is code running inside the app, with the app's permissions, on the app's behalf. In 2018, a team at the University of Oxford analyzed 959,000 apps from the Google Play stores in the United States and the United Kingdom. The median app contained 10 distinct third-party trackers. Around 88% could ultimately send data to a company owned by Alphabet. The median, not the worst offender, the middle of the distribution. Ask the developer what their app transmits, and many genuinely do not know, because the answer lives in someone else's library, under someone else's release schedule. So the request leaves. Here is what happens to it, and the whole thing has to finish before the screen you are looking at has settled. The app's advertising SDK sends the bid request to an exchange. The exchange broadcasts it outward to demand-side platforms, the buyers, which can number in the hundreds. Each buyer has milliseconds to decide. It matches the identifier against whatever it already knows, scores you against the campaigns it is running, and returns a price. Google's own exchange gives its bidders around 120 milliseconds to respond. Miss the deadline and your bid is simply not counted. The exchange ranks the bids, picks a winner, tells the loser nothing, and returns the winning advert. All of it, broadcast, scoring, bidding, ranking, delivery, inside roughly a tenth of a second. Faster than you can notice the screen finished loading. This is not a metaphor for a marketplace. It is a marketplace, with a clock, a settlement rule, and losers. Now follow the money backwards, because this is where the story stops being about privacy and starts being about arithmetic. An advertiser spends £1. The question is how much of that pound reaches the app that showed the advert. In 2020, the British advertiser trade body SBA commissioned PricewaterhouseCoopers to trace it properly. They followed 267 million impressions across 15 advertisers, 12 agencies, and a dozen publishers, and tried to reconcile both ends of every transaction. Publishers received about 51% of what advertisers spent, and roughly 15% could not be attributed to anyone at all. Not fraud, necessarily. The study called it an unknown delta. The money left one end of the chain and did not arrive at the other, and no participant could say where it went. That is the real hidden cost, and notice who is paying it. Not only you. The developer is being charged too. out of revenue they never see itemized. A bid request is broadcast to hundreds of companies so that one can win. The other several hundred still received it. They were not obliged to forget it. That is the structural leak. An auction designed to find a buyer also, by construction, hands your data to everyone who lost. Some of those participants are not really advertisers at all. They are in the business of collecting, packaging, and reselling location and behavior. Regulators moved on this in January of 2024. The United States Federal Trade Commission banned a data broker called Xmode Social, and its successor OutLogic, from selling sensitive location data, the first order of its kind. 9 days later it did the same to in-market media. Read the orders, and the detail that matters is not the punishment, it is the description of the supply. Location data gathered through SDKs embedded in ordinary apps, then sold onward to buyers the original user could not have named. The app was free, the map was not. Something did change, and it is worth being precise about what. In April of 2021, Apple released App Tracking Transparency. Apps must now ask permission before using the identifier that ties you across other companies' products. Most people, offered that choice plainly, decline it. The effect was immediate and enormous. Meta told investors that the change would cost it around $10 billion in a single year, but look carefully at what that fixed. It removed one reliable identifier. It did not remove the auction, the bid request, the SDKs, the exchange, or the resale. The market adapted, as markets do. Buyers move toward signals that do not require permission. The app you are in, your rough location, your device, the timing and pattern of your behavior. The industry calls this contextual and probabilistic. It is less precise, and it is not consented to differently. It is simply built from things a phone cannot help revealing. A permission prompt changed who is allowed to hold the key. It did not change the fact that the door is opened several hundred times a day. So the honest version of, if you are not paying, you are the product, is more specific and more useful. You are not the product, you are the inventory. A product is made once and sold once. Inventory is auctioned repeatedly, in real time, at a price set by demand, and the price of one impression is a fraction of a penny, which is precisely why it has to happen billions of times a day. 3 things follow from that, and all 3 are checkable. The transmission is not a side effect of the app, it is the revenue model, and the code that performs it usually came from a third party the developer trusts and cannot audit. The cost is not only borne by you. Roughly half of the advertiser's money never reaches the app you actually use. And the leak is not a bug in the auction, it is the auction. Broadcasting to everyone is how a winner gets found. The app really is free, it is just not the thing being sold.